Hey everyone, I'm Kunal Bajwa.
And I'm Lance Jordan.
We are two nerds who decided to start a podcast in 2020 due to the pandemic. No topic is necessarily off the table, and we'd like you to join us in hearing our thoughts on various topics, ranging from anime to Zeppelins. We have it all. Here we go. All right, Ben Soika, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Ben Soika has been in my life for the past 5 years. He actually used to work at the gym that Lance and I were a part of. And Lance, you've been there. You were at that gym for...
Yes, for many years.
For many years. Sounds like a wonderful time. So that's where we met. And that's where I wanted to make some changes. I was already working with one of the other trainers, but they got busy. So I was like, oh, cool. I'll try working with this guy. And I came in with knee, back, and eventually neck problems that have all been sorted out with his workout regimen and stretching as well as massage. Most importantly, I also lost 20 pounds on nutrition outlook and meal prep plan. And so keeping in tone with last time's episode of Grain for Grain, where we had a product that you could still enjoy desserts like cupcakes and cakes and whatnot, and still quote unquote get swole, as the kids say these days all the time. Don't you shake your head at me, okay? Don't you shake your head at me.
All right.
You're supposed to be my partner in crime.
keep going.
And you do this to me, and it doesn't help. But aside from that, so yeah, we wanted to bring Ben to this episode to keep in league with the nutritional aspect that we were going for. So Ben, we wanted to start off, how did you become a personal trainer? Can you take us through that journey that you went through?
Yeah, so that was kind of an interesting journey. So as a kid, I was always physically active. I should say I was a very hyperactive child, always running around outside, and I loved playing sports. I wasn't very physically fit in the sense of I wasn't very lean. So I was kind of like the hyperactive, like chubby kid that loved sports so much that could like make up for the fact that I was chubby.
Oh, cool.
And so this personal trainer thing is not something that came very natural to me, at least in that sense. So like I wasn't born with a six pack by any means. And so that was the story up until high school. And then when I was in high school, I got really sick, and I was pretty sick for a couple of years and went to plenty of doctors, had, a number of symptoms. And it was always kind of like perplexing in the sense that I would check out, everything was good, but I was still sick, right? And so I was having symptoms. The two most notable ones were I was vomiting a lot and I had insomnia. And that lasted for about 2 years till I was finally diagnosed with celiac disease, which at that time, this was around 2004. So this was like just before the whole sort of like gluten-free fad boom. Like it was before it was something that they really looked for as much. So I think that that's part of the reason why it took so long for me to get diagnosed. And I think also that I didn't have like the most common symptoms. So like the insomnia and throwing up, that's typically not the case. It's usually more like diarrhea and bloating and things like that. So I got properly diagnosed and I started, following what the doctors told me to do. At this point, this is my freshman year in college, which is a really fun time to go through the colonoscopy prep that I went through.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it is.
So I was in my dorm room, and my room, of course, was the room that was furthest from the bathroom.
No.
And obviously being in a dorm, it's a communal bathroom. So the colonoscopy prep, the like laxatives that you drink the entire day beforehand, it was, a lot of people had fun with that.
Wow.
So yeah, I got properly diagnosed. And I think it was probably a function of just that I had been sick for so long that I started eating gluten-free diet. And I didn't really feel that much better, still like really lethargic. And I just throughout the day just like didn't feel like myself. I didn't feel great. And at the same time, probably some sort of rebound thing from being, so sick for so long. And then obviously not, keeping a lot of food down. I started gaining a whole bunch of weight. Mm-hmm. So, long story short, I wound up at, my top weight was 315 pounds, and I wasn't feeling very good. I was feeling pretty crappy all the time. And the one thing that I found as I was trying to figure out how to get myself healthier and feeling better was regular exercise helped me to feel so much better. And so I was never really like a regular exerciser before that. I was always physically active, but never like structured, like, hey, I'm going to go to the gym and lift some weights, or like structured running program or anything like that. And so I started doing that myself. And then just the way that, I don't know, I tend to approach things. I wasn't just like, oh, go on bodybuilding.com and download a program and just follow the program. Like, I wanted to learn all the why behind it and like make my own programs and try to like figure out like, okay, if I'm going to be in the gym, I'm going to be lifting weights, like how can I get like results better? So, the next thing that happened was I was 315 pounds. So definitely overweight, but I was in the gym and I was lifting weights and I was getting like way, way, way stronger. Okay. And I went to a small college, and one of the football coaches noticed me just going in the weight room all the time and was like, hey, do you want to play football? And I was like, sure, why not? And so I joined the football team as a offensive lineman.
Oh, shit. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I played 2 years of D3 football as an offensive lineman. And so for the 2 years that I was doing that, that was my main focus, was like strength and conditioning. I wanted to learn everything that I could about for myself. Okay, how can I be, stronger and in better shape for being an offensive lineman? But then I also got really interested in just in general athletic performance. And so I did an internship at a place out in Oregon that worked with athletes. So I got to work with a whole range of athletes, from youth athletes all the way up to professional athletes. So I worked with a couple NFL players, and also was the school's first assistant strength and conditioning coach.
Oh. That's cool.
Completely jumped into that. I was originally a music major, and I switched over to kinesiology. And so got my degree, and then it was just sort of like, I feel like I don't know enough. Like, I just want to learn more. So went to grad school for exercise physiology. And right around that time, my youngest sibling, my sister, I was with her on a trip, and she had this magazine, and this was one of like the defining moments for me. So she had this magazine, and it was one of those like dumb celebrity, magazine. I don't even know what it was called, but it was like, she was into all those shows and everything. So there's a celebrity magazine, and there was this celebrity that was like talking about like the diet that she was on. And so she was telling me about it. She's like, oh yeah, I think that I want to go on this diet because I want to lose some body fat and blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, well, let me look at it. This is like within the realm of all the stuff I'm really interested in and I'm studying. And I look at this diet, like, God, this is just like a terrible, just like eating disorder diet. This is like not what, a teenage girl should be doing by any means. This is a recipe for disaster.
It's an epidemic that's going on right now too.
Honestly. Yeah, so I look at it, and then I started explaining to her like all the reasons why it's like, hey, this is not going to be a good fit for you, and this is what I think that you should do instead. This would be better for you. And she listened to me. And I was done talking, and she paused and she looks over at me. She goes, "But Ben, you've got moves. Why would I listen to you? You've got moves." So man boobs, right? And so it kind of like hit me for a second, and I was just like, yeah, if this is within the realm of stuff that I want to help people with, that they're going to look at me and they're going to be like, okay, do you really know how to help people do this if you yourself are 315 pounds? And so I spent the next about 8 or 9 months losing 100 pounds, lost 100 pounds. And I have kept it off for now over 10 years, which is really important because that's the whole thing that I try to help people do.
Damn.
Yeah. So lost all the weight, went to grad school. When I was in grad school, when you're in grad school, there's basically like 3 things that you do. There's the classes that you take, there is the classes that you teach, and then there's research that you're involved in. I, for the most part, liked the classes that I was taking. In some cases, they felt a little bit slow for me, and or just like I was someone that was just so self-motivated with study that I would just go and study my own stuff anyways. Research, I absolutely love the research. Research is really freaking slow, and it needs to be, to make sure, because you got to make sure that you're doing everything in such a controlled way that you can be fairly confident about the results that you get. But it was just like a really slow thing, and it was like when you're doing a study, the purpose is to like test a certain hypothesis. It's not necessarily to like try to help people achieve a certain thing, right?
Right.
And then there's the classes that you teach, and I immediately fell in love with the classes that I was teaching. So I was teaching personal fitness and also a weight training class, which was, it was really funny because it was the way that I taught it, it was basically the same class. Like all the stuff that we went out, it was for the most part, personal fitness and weight training were the same class, but you'd have like 40 students, and in the weight training class, it'd be like 35 guys and 5 girls. And the personal fitness class would be like 35 girls and 5 guys. It was literally just the name for the name was different.
It's all about branding.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was in grad school, and I just found like, dude, just working with these people that are beginners or relative beginners, it was so fun and rewarding to me that I was just like, okay, I know what I want to do. You know, personal training certification. I started working at a couple of gyms in the area, and then the rest is really history. So that's how I arrived here, and now I've been doing it for over a decade.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. Well, I asked the off the rail questions. Like, so what happened with music? Did you just fall out of love with it completely, or?
No, no, I was really, my emphasis at the time was composition. And when I was in high school, I was in a whole bunch of bands and loved performing live. I was in a wide variety of bands. And in school, I was in classical guitar ensemble. I also played electric bass in the jazz guitar ensemble. I was in a sort of pop-ish / Dave Matthews-ish type band. And I was in a couple death metal bands, and it was just, yeah. The death metal, I could tell you, man, that's the most fun to perform. You just get to go crazy on stage. I had hair like, halfway down my back. It was great.
I've seen the pictures of it. It looks like it's a totally different bend. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think that I necessarily fell out of love with it. I just fell so much in love with all of the health and fitness stuff. Like I I've basically been obsessed with it for 10 years. And so, the other thing, 2 things that I really am sort of just, I don't know why I'm obsessed with. One of them is I really love helping people. I really, really, really love helping people. And then the second thing I'm obsessed with is trying to figure out how to do the first one better. And so, it really did sort of become an obsession where I was just nonstop, everything from the nuts and bolts of how to write programs, modifying nutrition to like, okay, and this might be a question later, but what is the problem with personal training and the way that it's typically done and so much emphasis on just the workouts and the nutrition? I just found that over, the 10 years that I've been doing this and trying to think about okay, how do I get a greater percentage of my clients to get better results? The workouts and the nutrition, at least the nuts and bolts of it are kind of just bullshit. it almost doesn't matter. And it's funny because I talk to younger trainers, because over the 10 years I've been in positions where obviously, you guys know AJ and Shelly, they're both
Yes.
my employees now. Prior to that, I was in management and director positions at other gyms where I was in charge of other trainers. And it's trainers hate hearing that, but it's just dude, the workouts are bullshit. You really can. I shouldn't say that, but it's it's not the most important thing.
Okay, that's what I was about to ask you. What do you mean by it's bullshit?
For the vast majority of people, there's definitely special circumstances. So, a special circumstance might be a very advanced athlete, right? Where it's okay, you got to really structure, Olympic athlete, where you got to structure a 4-year training block for them to, try to eke out the smallest % of improvement that they could possibly get left. Or, I would say that there's some creativity really involved is maybe if somebody's dealing with injuries, a bad injury or a lot of injuries. Okay, well, how can we help them recover, but at the same time, give them really hard and challenging workouts that aren't going to make their injury worse. Outside of that though, the writing of programs is relatively basic. And if what we needed to do in order to get the general population to their health and fitness goals was just make them programs, then why isn't everyone just going on bodybuilding.com and just pulling something off the internet and just following it and doing that?
Yeah, it'd be cheaper.
But that's not what the problem is.
Right. Yeah.
So I say that it's bullshit for effect. It's not bullshit. It's the wrong focus. It's like, it's not the thing that is stopping the general population from achieving the health and fitness that they want.
Okay. So it's more of the mindset is what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, the BigMAC. The BigMAC.
Which brings us to our point. So, your business is called BigMAC.
Fitness.
Which I will tell you, when AJ had originally sent that text, I thought he was asking me to go for Big Macs, and I was very confused.
The first time he said it too, I'm like, "We're going to McDonald's?" Like, I was like, "Okay, I'm down for this, but I don't know how this works."
Right.
Like, I don't know how this works with my workout, but okay.
Yeah. It's I don't know if it's the greatest name for marketing or whatever, but I think like people really appreciate it once they understand where it comes from and what it means.
So can you break that down for us?
I'm so glad you asked. Yeah, so over all the years that I've been working with people in their health and fitness, and for a lot of people, a huge part of that is some form of fat loss. Managing their nutrition, there's just so many people struggle with it so much. And I think that there's a lot of reasons for that. Certainly a big part of the blame is the health and fitness industry itself, beauty industry, or however far you want to take it.
Sure.
And just like the number of fad diets that we have, where it's just sort of like, they all kind of follow some sort of formula, like, hey, we've figured out like this thing, like either like don't eat these foods, or don't eat like carbohydrates, or don't eat fat, or whatever it is, or only eat between like 12 p.m. and 8 p.m. intermittent fasting or something like that. There's always like some sort of just like hook like that gets people like, oh, I haven't seen that before, or I haven't, heard of that before. And look at me, I've struggled, but like now here's this thing, and now I'm like going to do this thing, and hopefully it's the thing that works and sticks. I think that what it winds up doing, because it doesn't really address, all of those approaches don't really address what's required for long-term success with weight management or fat loss. And so I just been thinking about that for, a long time. And so basically where the BigMAC comes from is I have it arranged on a chart that I developed, where I took, okay, what are all of the principles of like the variables that we can modify when it comes to a nutrition plan? And then I put them in order from most important to least important, which I think is really important, because there's things that you can modify to a nutrition plan for health or weight management that you could maybe make an argument, okay, this will make your results a little bit better, or they might help you be a little bit healthier. But it's such a small difference. And then there's things that are just like absolutely critical. And so where the BigMAC comes from is the first 4 variables. So it's big picture, mindset, adherence, and then calories. Certainly there's other things that you can modify. You can modify your macronutrients, protein, carbohydrates, and fat. You can pay attention to the type of food that you eat. You can pay attention to when you eat. There's a whole bunch of things that you can modify. But the 4 fundamental elements are big picture, mindset, adherence, and then calories. Those are the necessary ones. And so I make the claim that every long-term success with weight management got those 4 things right. So every person who's had long-term success with weight management has done a good job of those 4 things. Any failure, long-term failure, can be explained by something that got off with those 4 variables, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, so I think where it's been really helpful for people that I'm working with is getting them to focus on the right stuff, right? It gets them to focus on the right stuff, and it at the same time allows them to kind of eliminate the noise. That's something a lot of times that people, get worried about. Like, oh my God, I had carbs after 8 p.m. I've like blown my diet, or is like, or even if they're just wondering, like, is that something that I need to worry about? And it's like, dude, don't even worry about that until you've got the BigMAC down. I think it's also helpful, the way that that acronym that arrived from that is just makes it easy to remember, where it's like,
Definitely.
okay, even if you do have a fairly detailed nutrition plan, the one thing I tell everybody that you can guarantee about any plan, can also heard this a number of times, the one thing you can guarantee about any plan that you make for yourself is it's going to get fucked up. That's the one thing you can guarantee about any plan.
Because that's just straight up life at the end of the day.
Yeah. Even if you have a really detailed nutrition plan or you've made yourself a meal plan or whatever, it gets a little bit messed up for whatever reason. Go back to just the BigMAC. And okay, well, big picture, mindset, adherence, calories, focus on these things and know that, okay, yeah, I'm supposed to be eating more protein or whatever, but if you go a couple days or a week or even longer than that without hitting that goal, if you've got those 4 things down, you're still on track to meeting your fat loss goal.
So you're always playing the long game.
Always playing the long game. Yeah. That's a really great point. Yeah. I mean, that's exactly how I came up with it and emphasized it so much was, I'd get clients that would come in and when you talk to them about their goals, they'd say something like, oh, well, I want to lose 20 pounds, or I want to lose 50 pounds or whatever it is. And I would always start by reframing it to, okay, so let's say they're 170 pounds and they want to be 150 pounds. Mm-hmm. I always reframe it and say, okay, it's not so much that you want to lose 20 pounds. It's more that you want to be 150 pounds. So it starts to shift the focus and the mindset a little bit. One, to yes, this is a long-term thing, but then also we can start to think like, okay, what are the things that a 150 pound person does?
Right.
And how can we get to that point where you can be 150 pounds and it's not so much of a struggle. It's just a part of your life and a part of who you are. And that's really what the end goal is. I don't want, to have my people just like sign up with me and pay to work with me and then lose 30 pounds and then stop working with me and then they just like gain it back.
Yeah, that defeats the whole purpose.
Yeah.
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 How have you changed someone's mindset?
It takes practice. So one, they have to know what to do and what they should be focusing on. And it depends on the person because our beliefs about ourselves and about health and fitness and our ability to actually achieve what it is that we want to achieve can bring up a whole host of things. I would say that the most common ones would be really trying to cultivate a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset, which to really kind of like simplify it, a growth mindset is just this belief that like, okay, I can learn how to do this. And if I stumble, it's like an opportunity for me to learn. Whereas a fixed mindset might be like, okay, I started this nutrition plan and I am somebody who is a sugar addict and on Saturday I ate a ton of candy and ate a whole bunch of sugar and look, I blew it. That's just who I am. And there's the evidence right there that this happened on a Saturday that I'm a sugar addict and I will be for the whole rest of my life, right? That type of thinking, that type of belief really makes it difficult. And so really trying to just like cultivate and get people to understand that like, okay, one, growth mindset, that's the way we want to be thinking. And then two, helping them understand, like in that example that I just gave, what really went on there, right? There's nothing, one, sugar, it's like super delicious. It's normal to like want to eat a whole bunch of freaking sugar. Two, this is nothing more than just like a habit and associations that you've just built up for however old you are, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, 60 years. In 1 week, you're not going to like change that, right? You're not going to like develop a new habit or a new sort of like default way of operating. It takes a little bit of practice.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of it is tied into one, mental health, and two, especially if you're an American, it's not completely your fault because food cues are everywhere around you. And I know we're jumping ahead a little bit with this point, but I feel like it's the best part to interject. It's so hard to walk 10 blocks or drive 10 blocks and not see a food advertisement or anything. And it's so cheap and effective and just quick. And what's so sad is it doesn't even taste good sometimes. It's honestly just like high in fats.
Yeah. So much of this is just awareness. So many people who struggle with their weight, they either don't know why or they attribute it to the wrong thing. I think a big part of my job is, one, letting them know like, dude, what you're going through is completely normal to be going through this environment that we're in. And then two, just helping them discover why, right? And what Kunal just touched on is a huge, huge part of it. I mean, our society is at the point now where we have so much food available to us that is so relatively cheap. Not all of it is delicious, but so much of it is like super delicious. Like how hard is it to like get a couple large pizzas delivered to your house? It's so easy, right? And it's not super expensive. And pizza is basically designed, it's normal to want another piece and then have another piece and more and more and more and more. The food combinations that we have now did not exist in the caveman days. This has been manufactured to be super freaking delicious.
Yeah, and one thing American just businesses are great at, I mean, is just by like getting everything that sticks in your head. I'm like, how many of us know like the McDonald's theme song? Ba da ba ba ba. You're getting fat. Like it's just the perfect thing to follow through with, and they've spent countless amounts of money and time and hours just put into that.
Yeah, there's a number of associations that we build up with certain foods, and basically there are all these good associations, right? And so what happens is, it depends on the person, but there might be something like stressful day, ice cream will make me feel better. So they've built up this association, and habits are really strong. So that habit is there. And a lot of times people aren't fully aware of it, and it just perpetuates itself. Getting people to just really understand with like some mindfulness stuff, as Kunal is gradually becoming more and more of a master, getting people to just recognize that like, no, it's not that like you're a sugar addict. No, it's not that you're like have low motivation. It's not that you don't have enough willpower. You don't have enough, discipline. It's just that this is how you have built up these habits and this association. And the first step is just becoming aware of them and attributing the right things to the right things. And then once you're aware, you can kind of step back and start to think, okay, well, how can I start to behave differently?
For me, it's like I've had all those conversations with you, and it's essentially it stems from shame that I have failed in one regard or the other, that like I'm not good enough or I've done something bad. And, people like Brene Brown and other psychologists like that we've talked about, and also Russ, who wrote The Happiness Trap, which is a great book you should check out.
I love that book.
It's a great book, and I'm reading more and more of it, but you're not a bad person for enjoying that candy. You're not a bad person for enjoying that pizza. It's the amount of it. How much are you doing it? And as new agey as it sounds, like literally I like to chew, I think of whenever I eat food, like I got to chew it for the amount of teeth that I have. So like if without my wisdom teeth, I have 28 teeth. So chew your every mouthful 28 times. You immediately start getting full so much more efficiently and quicker. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Going back to this mindfulness thing, my hypothesis is, and this is something that I've experienced with clients, I wonder if there was some way we could wave a magic wand and make everybody be fully mindful while they're eating. In this case, we'll just say like, okay, every single bite you take, you have to fully enjoy, like across the week. So you can eat whatever you want in whatever quantity you want. You just have to fully be present for every bite, and you have to enjoy every bite. And if you are at the point where you're now no longer enjoying a bite, that's when you put the food away. I don't know if we'd have an obesity problem.
Yeah.
I mean, so much of what we do is just automatic. And it's like when we get these foods, we use the pizza example again. Let's say somebody's like really craving pizza. They really want pizza. They have one or two slices and they enjoy it. And then, the rest of it is just kind of like automatic. They're like not even like thinking about it. They're just eating it because it's there. I mean, how much often does that happen with like a bag of chips? Like, oh man, I want something salty and like crunchy. You open the bag of chips. You take that first handful. You're like, oh my God, that's good. That's really what I want. Right. And then you're like watching TV or something, and then the whole bag is gone. It's like, dude, you just took in all those calories, and for what? You didn't even enjoy it.
For me, it's the Cool Ranch, man. Once I start, I can't stop. So I have to put it in a bowl. Otherwise, I turn into the guys from South Park. I just start getting so chubby quickly. It's true. It's true. So building on that point, what's really popular nowadays, I always think of The Rock whenever I hear about this. Like he's like, if you're going to have cheat days, have huge cheat days. And, he's eating like 10 pancakes, 4 pizzas, 3 pies, what have you. And I've brought this up to you before.
Is that Putang pie?
Putang pie?
That was one of The Rock's things. He was always
Was it really?
Yeah, he was always talking about Putang pie.
was that one of the things?
Back in the day, yeah.
Yeah.
When it was uncensored.
Oh, okay.
Crazy time, the 90s, I'll tell you.
The golden age for many things. Indeed. But, and I've always seen you shy away from calling it a cheat day and also having a cheat day in the first place.
Yeah. I am not a fan, I think there's a couple things there. One, looking at a particular individual and then trying to like apply it everywhere it doesn't work, right? Like The Rock is somebody who, I mean, I don't know how much that guy works out, but he's a psycho. He does not represent the average person, right? The dude is a psycho.
Genetically, mentally, like lifestyle wise, everything.
From what I understand, he's a like crazy worker too. I mean, with like building his brand and everything like that. I mean, not to mention, I don't know how many steroids that guy is on.
Allegedly.
The verdict's still out, all right?
If he wasn't, then I'd be like, why not? I mean, seriously, he was a professional wrestler, right?
Yeah.
I know that it's illegal, but I still think you would be in that situation when your career depends on it. I think it would be dumb to not do it.
Yeah, I mean...
All right, actors, you heard it here.
Yes, right. Start juicing.
But anyways, that was a little tangent on that. What The Rock is doing is obviously working for The Rock, right? As far as I can tell, he's accomplishing his goal. So the reason that I don't like cheat days, or it's more so the term cheat day that I'm not a fan of. I feel like it puts a negative connotation on it, and I don't think that there should be a negative connotation. My most preferred term, instead of cheat days, is I just call it food. It's just food. There's no such thing as like a bad food. It's like pizza isn't bad for you. Ice cream isn't bad for you. Chips aren't bad for you. They just tend to be often overeaten. That's really just all the problem is that they're very tasty. They're very dense in calories. And so you eat some, you get a lot of calories, and they're so tasty, you want to eat more. And then you get a whole freaking bunch of calories. That's just really the thing. An analogy that I use a lot with people is the term is hyperpalatable foods, which just basically means like super tasty foods. So think of your classic quote unquote like junk foods, pizza, ice cream, that type of stuff, candy. Those foods aren't bad. Just like going on vacation isn't bad. People describe vacation as a good thing, right? But if you are like hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, working like a minimum wage job, flying around the world every single weekend, racking up a credit card doing that, is probably going to lead to problems, right?
Oh, yeah.
Only if they catch you, though.
My man. My man.
No, that's a good point. I got to come up with a better analogy now.
No, I didn't mean to throw you off. Keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I think that most people can relate to that, though, is that, I mean, everyone has their own point with, what they need, their other responsibilities, whether it be family or career, whatever, that they can understand that, okay, there would be a point where if I was taking, X amount of vacation, this would then actually lead to other problems. But it doesn't mean that vacation's bad. Just like these foods aren't bad. So I'm not a fan of cheat day because it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, what are you cheating on?
Yourself, essentially, at that point.
Cheating on yourself? It doesn't make any sense to me. And then the other thing that I don't like is the negative connotation. I feel like what it tends to promote is this idea of that, okay, eating healthfully the way that you would most of the time is depriving yourself. And then you start to like really look forward to like, oh, I can't have pizza or pancakes or whatever, or putang pie during the week. And then it's like, oh my God, like you start to get fixated on, I can't wait till Saturday, or I can't wait till 2 weeks from now where I've planned this thing. And then what tends to happen is it like really, really builds up. And then people just like want to gorge themselves.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened to me too. Like I was on a 6-pack diet for a while, and I was allowed allowed a free meal as you wrote it on there. And I would just look forward to that day on the weekend and be like, and then my parents would be like, you're so strict, you've been wearing food and everything. And then on this one meal you're going nuts on. And I'm like, yeah, it's my free meal. But I realized that wasn't sustainable. It didn't last. And it just caused more mental anguish in the first place in the long run.
I mean, that's the exact thing that it's like you want to try to avoid. The place that, I want all of my clients to get to is ultimately that just like when it comes to health and fitness, it's just not a struggle. End the struggle. Like you're just like at peace with it all. If you have like this like cheat meal or whatever it is, like that's taking up brain space. You know what I mean? Taking up brain space, and yeah, the gorging, it just starts like this mini binge and purge type thing. And it's like, that's not, I mean, who wants to live their life like that?
It's horrible.
So I've seen these things, and you can tell me if it's good or bad, but I've seen these diets where you can eat what you want maybe like at the beginning of the day, and then you starve yourself for like 8 or however many hours until your next meal. And I've known people that this works as a temporary way to lose weight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then I've seen if they don't keep up with that they gain it all back or gain even more. So I just kind of want to get your thoughts on that type of lifestyle, that diet.
Yeah, it's good if you follow the BigMAC. It's not good if you don't follow the BigMAC. I mean, this is actually a really great point. I mean, another big reason why I created that, that acronym was because people would ask me, like, what do you think about this diet? Or what do you think about this approach or whatever? And it's like, well, it's not so much those types of details that matter for the long-term success. It will work. Like if you do a keto diet, it will work if you've got the big picture right, which is basically your why. Like, why is it that you want to lose weight? Like, that's super important because it guides every other decision. If you have a good mindset about it, adherence, if you are following it and you have good systems in place that make it easy for you to follow. And then if calories are in the right spot, which calories is the actual nuts and bolts, right? Energy in, energy out. You have to, if you're trying to lose weight, you have to expend more than you take in.
Right.
If you have all of those, you can argue the details of the rest, but it just doesn't really matter that much. So if for somebody it helped, they were doing the BigMAC right and they just wanted to eat basically like breakfast and lunch. That's what you said, right?
Yeah, I mean, I know a friend who's done like, they'll have breakfast and then like have dinner and then that's it for the day. Even if there are periods where they're hungry, but they refuse to eat anything to kind of like crave it.
Yeah, it will work if BigMAC is followed. I mean, that's a great point because that's something that so many people do. I mean, there's tons of examples. Name any, fad diet and it's like we can pick out where it was like not appropriate for somebody for these reasons. But let's just say low carb, right? There's like no real reason for general population. There's no real reason that you can't eat carbohydrates. And let's say that like someone goes on this low carb diet and they absolutely love carbohydrates, right? Or they love bread or they want to be able to eat, birthday cake at their daughter's birthday or whatever it is. There's only so long you can white knuckle it before you give in. Once you give in, typically what happens, with these people is that, oh my God, I blew it. And then they give in a little bit more and they've been restricting themselves from these foods for so long. Then they start craving it even stronger. And then next thing you know, they're back to, where they started. Again, just to answer your question, any diet will work. Like BigMAC isn't a diet, right? It's like the principles. Any method or any diet will work if it follows the BigMAC principle.
Gotcha. That's a good summation of what your thoughts on are in that. But we're in a pandemic. How does that work in terms of pandemic? Because that's why we started the podcast. That's why we did all this. We all have different goals. Mine are more calisthenic. I want to do pistol squats and stuff with a pull-up bar and free weights and handstands. So I've got my own kind of goals, but then you throw in a pandemic to it, and it's like, oh gosh, I don't have a gym. I don't have this. I don't have that. Although I do have some equipment now.
Yeah, you actually got a pretty sweet setup.
I do have a pretty sweet setup. I'll throw some pictures up later, but I do have some pretty good stuff.
Once again, we're painting a picture of how great Kanal's loft is.
It is. Yeah, I'm not starving here.
Oh, every time I Zoom with Kanal, I bring it up.
I'm gonna have like 10 people try and break into my place now.
No, because maybe 2 or 3 podcasts ago, Kanal was like, "Oh yeah, I'm living in such and such," and I'm like, "No, don't tell them."
It was an honest mistake. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
We can acknowledge how beautiful it is.
Thank you.
You
I think it's very beautiful.
You don't have to give them a location.
No, it is absolutely gorgeous, and he's Zoomed me, I think, intentionally for multiple weeks there. I think he picked a different room in a different angle so I could see all the different parts.
Just to piss him off every Wednesday. Yeah. It's because it's right before everyone eats dinner too. It's right at 5:30.
Nice.
Yeah, so the pandemic has been really interesting. I've noticed working with people and focusing on their health and helping them basically through the pandemic with their health and fitness. has been really interesting. And I mean, the one thing it's, I think kind of obvious, but I mean, it's affected everybody. It's affected people in different ways. But I think that this is overall for most people a great time to focus on health and fitness. A really great time. For a lot of people, they're not doing as much. There's certainly people where the opposite is true. We work with physicians and their life is insane. That's a different conversation, right?
Yes.
But I think for a lot of people, social life has gone down. The commute to work for a lot of people, that's gone down. Just commute to a lot of places gone down. And so a lot of people have pockets of, a little bit more sort of free time. And then on top of that, we're way more isolated. And also this time of the year, it's getting dark and it's getting cold. These are all things that are not great for mental health. So that's one reason why I think taking care of your health and fitness is really important right now. And it's a great time to do it because you will really feel the benefits of doing it. The other reason that it's a great time to do it is it gives you something to work towards and focus on. On a macro level across the world and across, our country right now, things are pretty shitty in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like really, really, really crappy. And there's nothing that any one of us can do to really just change that or affect that, right? But there are things that we can do in our personal life that are good for us. There's nothing that we can do right now to as an individual stop corona. There's nothing that we can do right now to stop police brutality or anything like that. Or I just listed off two if I think of the hundreds of things that have happened in 2020.
I mean, yeah. We could make a whole episode just on what's been 2020 terrible.
Murder hornets were my favorite.
Oh yeah, forgot about them. Fuck.
So on the micro level though, so on our individual level, there's actually a lot of opportunity to do good things for ourselves. Right now, it's just a really great time to do it. It's super important for mental health. And with the number of people that I've started, because I've got two sort of categories of clients right now. So I have clients that were working with me in person when we were in person in the gym. Also have clients that have signed up with us during the pandemic. Something that's become really apparent to me is that this is a great time to do it because if you can really focus on the things that are really important for making this a long-term change and really make those habits really stable. So then when you are able to do things let's say, go back to a gym, or when things do seem in your life a little bit easier overall, you're going to have these stable habits built up and it'll just be easier to manage because life won't be as crummy, So people have signed up during the pandemic and you've got some people that are going after the life-changing weight loss, which you do not need a gym to lose weight at all.
And that's a really important point. People think, oh, I don't have, access to a gym anymore. I can't be jacked. I can't be in shape. I can't do all these things, but there's ways around that.
Yeah, no, there's tons of ways around it. I mean, I love gyms. I absolutely love gyms. And the reason that I personally love them is I live in a tiny apartment and I like going places. My apartment is basically the same size of Canal's bathroom.
Hey man, you're welcome here anytime. You're welcome here anytime. And we can walk into around the place and you can see you can see everything. You're welcome here.
Yeah. The other thing that I really love about gyms was, you guys were, before the first lockdown happened and you guys experienced this, we had built up a little bit of a community. I love that aspect of it. I love the fact that you guys became friends because you both signed up with us. I loved, being there with my two employees, AJ and Shelly, we're each with a client. There's a group community. It was always for me, it was always fun to go to work because I could be a part of that community. Those are two things that I miss about gyms.
If I were to interject really quickly, I graduated a year right before I started working with you, and that was something that was consistent I don't think I've told you this. That was something that was consistent in my life since 2015 and obviously till now. So that was cool for me to have. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being such a wonderful part of it.
Hey, I'm happy to help.
But outside of that, again, with the exception of, specific populations, you don't really need a gym. Definitely you don't need a gym to lose weight. I mean, if you just want to lose weight, you can just take control of your nutrition and go on walks.
True that.
But then other than that, you can get pretty jacked with no equipment at home. because this was definitely something that I encountered with talking to people. Oh my God, I'm going to, now I'm working out at home. I'm going to lose all of my muscle. I was like, okay, well, let's think about this for a second. Generally, muscle hypertrophy, so the muscle growth in terms of like the number of where you still get that up to a certain number of repetitions is about 30 repetitions. Meaning that once you're doing something for more than 30 repetitions, you're not really like getting much muscle growth from it. It's just like endurance, right?
Ooh, okay.
Muscle endurance. So let's say, okay, can you do 30 one-arm push-ups with perfect technique and it's like not a struggle, right? Okay. Can you do 30 pistol squats, which if you don't know, that's a one-legged squat, like literally your other leg doesn't touch the ground, with a full range of motion, meaning your butt touches your ankle, back up 30 repetitions, and that's like not that much of a struggle, right? If you have a pull-up bar, can you do 30 pull-ups, without like any struggle? It's like, if anybody answered yes to that, then it's like, okay, you got to get some weights. If you answered no to that, it's like, no, then you don't need it. There are plenty of options. As far as like the bodyweight stuff goes, Kunal, you're started to work on some other type of like gymnastics type of movements. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I'd say to those people is go on YouTube, Google gymnast, go on YouTube, Google like park workouts, and tell me that those people aren't jacked. Like they do not go to a gym.
Did you not? I think the phrase they always use is like, the world is my gym, and I just get jacked from it. So something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's kind of funny because the only place I've ever heard that phrase was, this, I'm not a big like pop culture person. I don't watch a lot of TV or anything like that. But there was actually a television show that I watched, and that line was in the television show.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. You guys ever watched the show? It's called Peep Show.
No.
It's called Peep Show because they do a lot of like first person view.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. It was a pretty funny show. It was actually a show that I watched, but that was basically, there was a scene where there's two guys that live together, and one guy was like, hey, I joined a gym. The other one's making fun of him. He's like, no, the world is my gym. I don't need the gym. The world is my gym. And he's like, yeah, well, the world is my gym too, which just so happens that part of it is an actual gym. So, as far as like that goes, you absolutely do not need a gym. Maybe if you're an Olympic weightlifter, you need to get a barbell. There's you're not going to do, push-ups isn't going to make you better at like a clean and jerk and a snatch. Power lifter, you're not going to get better at, deadlifting by doing, pistol squats probably. So yeah, if there's like really specific things like that, then you might need a gym or to get some equipment at home. But outside of that, you don't need it. Which now it's one of those things where the gyms are open. They've got a lot of restrictions. The gyms are open. So you can absolutely go to a gym. We've got clients that are going to gyms. We're making their programs reflective of that. And we've got people that just say, hey, you know what? I don't want to mess with it, or I'm just happy doing what you have me do at home. To add another thing onto that is something that has been helpful, I think, for a lot of people. So people who have decided that I am mostly going to work at home and I'm not going to go into a gym, which in the beginning of the lockdown, they didn't have a choice, right? Right now, people have a choice, but at the beginning of the lockdown, people didn't have a choice. And something I think that's really helpful is coming up with goals that you can work toward. And so I have a number of clients that I got running that never ran before. And I really liked that for a lot of people during the lockdown because one, it got them outside, which I think is really important. I think when we're just inside all the time, all day, that starts to do bad things to our mental health. I think it's really good to get outside. So it got them outside for some exercise. And then two, it was just like this new thing. So these people that identified as being like, oh, I don't run, or I can't run because I get shin splints, or I can't run because of, knee pain, or I can only run for 2 minutes and then I'm winded and I can't like run anymore. It's been like coming up with that goal has done amazing things for, their sense of accomplishment and their self-confidence to go from, hey, I can run for a minute before I have to walk, to now, months later, going on 30-minute jogs and it's like not a problem. Other ones would be, I've got a couple of people that are like, hey, you know what? I've never been able to do like a headstand or a handstand before. Can we start like working towards that? And so I think coming up with some things that, okay, is there something that I don't need to go to a gym for that would be like exciting or beneficial for me to like kind of make like a mini goal or something to work towards. So I think the more that you can think of that, it's just like it's an added benefit. And that's something that I've seen a lot with people that we've been working with.
Cool.
Do you think you'll ever go back to a gym setting?
I don't know, but I will say for me personally, I really like human interaction. That's a personal preference. The things that I miss, like with this whole thing, was like that sense of community. That's the thing that I miss the most. And that's harder to do online. So right now it's tough with COVID.
Yeah.
But I think you've been doing it well because I've seen like on your Facebook posts, you'll host these like meetups to go do a jog or to do a run or walk.
Yeah, safe.
And it still
safe,
seems like you're trying to create that community.
Yeah, that is something that I started doing. So a couple months ago, as I went through this whole crazy COVID thing and transitioned doing everybody, virtually, I was noticing like there's so much stuff that I actually like about virtual better than training in person. But that was one of the things I kept coming back to that I missed, was like that sense of community. So I was trying to think like, well, what could we do with COVID to like try to really build that, or at least have some of that. And so my idea was to do a once a month outdoor meetup, some sort of physical fitness thing for charity. And so we've been picking a different charity every month. It's just basically go outside, see other people in the community in a very safe and socially distanced way. That's
pretty tight. Is there a way that we can contact you, Ben, that you prefer? Or an email and such?
I've got a cool business number. So it's 314-375-4931. 314-375-4931. You can text that number or you can call that number. It'll go to me. My name's Ben.
And you're on the Instagrams as well.
Yeah, BigMAC Health and Fitness.
Cool.
What we offer is we offer everyone a free consultation. It's 60 minutes. We get to know you, your history as far as health history, injury, previous experience with exercise, ask you some questions about that, maybe have you move around a little bit so that just we can see how you move, if there might be anything that we need to take care of there. And then talk about your goals and what it is that you want to accomplish. Go over the different options that we have. We have a whole range of options of how we work with people virtually. Everything from talk once a month, design you a program, give you the resources. With some people, what we actually do is we Zoom them in and actually take them through workouts over Zoom and everything in between. So there's a whole range of options that we have there. Or if you're not even sure if you want to do a consultation, you can just shoot me a text or give me a phone call and I can answer your questions.
Sounds dope. I love it.
Beautiful stuff.
It is beautiful stuff.
Beautiful stuff.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks. Before you go, though, you have to share the most embarrassing Billy White Shoes story that you have.
We're actually doing this?
Yeah,
awesome.
We're doing this.
All right.
First thing?
Yeah.
Man.
Billy, this is for you.
Most embarrassing Billy White Shoes. So now, is this like where Billy should be embarrassed or I felt embarrassed?
Any of the above.
Yeah, I'll let you pick. Dealer's choice.
Dude, I don't, embarrassing. I don't know if I ever really like get embarrassed. I mean, I would say with Billy, it's more one of these things where, the way that he disagrees with me. Let's just put that down. Billy, if you're listening with me, stop disagreeing with me the way you disagree with me. It's funny because I don't know if he does this to other people, but I kind of feel weird saying this since he's an employee of mine. But since we all know him, we're also friends with him. I'll go ahead and do it. It's this way where it's like, I'll say like, hey, okay, this is what we're doing as a business. This is how we should do something. And instead of just being like, okay, and then sort of just like, oh, have you thought of this? Or maybe have you considered this? He'll just be like, no, why would we do that? This is dumb. Like, we should one. And I'm always like, who else talks to their boss that way? Come on. Or just do what I say first. And then after you do it, like for a bit, if you have some feedback, then with some actual data, then we can go over it. But I feel like what I should do is probably, I mean, you guys have talked about Billy White Shoes before, right?
He was mentioned on the first podcast. Yeah.
I feel like I should tell the story of how he got the nickname since I'm the one that gave him the nickname.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. When he first started working at the gym, he was working with me and developing as a coach, but he was also working for the gym behind the front desk. And so he was doing both roles. And every single time I came into the gym, he was like sitting, in that chair at the desk. And there was that vending machine right there. And one day I was just like, oh, this would be a nice thing to do. I'll see if he wants any snacks. So I'll buy him a snack. So I buy him, hey, do you want anything? And just the way that like his eyes lit up and he got so excited for it, I was like, dude, this is this thing. So I started every single time I would come in, I would say, hey, you want a snack? And he would get all excited and I'd buy him a snack every single time. And it just so much reminded me of a little kid that the first name that like came to my head was Billy. And so I just started walking in and say, hey, Billy, you want a snack? And he'd get like all excited for his little snack. And he'd tell, hey, what do you want? I'd buy him a snack and I'd give him a snack. He'd, rip the thing open up like a little kid and start snacking at it at the desk like he's a little kid. So I started calling him Billy and then called him Billy for a while. His last name is Johnson. And so, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's a Hall of Fame football player named Billy Johnson. His nickname was White Shoes. So then I started calling, randomly I just started calling him Billy White Shoes Johnson. So in the gym, I'd call him Billy White Shoes Johnson. And I was like, well, this doesn't make any sense because he doesn't have white shoes. And so then that's where the tradition got started. I said, well, I got to buy him some white shoes. So I bought him like the all white shoes, and then it became a tradition. Like every year I'd buy him a new pair of all white shoes, and then I made that his uniform.
I tell you what though, he loves it. And he would keep the box and then switch out the box when he was leaving. Like,
oh yeah.
Oh, you guys ever see him lace those things up?
I've never seen him lace it up, but I have seen him take good care of them for
this
sure.
This guy takes care of his shoes, man. And like I got a video of him lacing it up, and it's just like it's like a lace. It's like a new shoelace, and I swear he flattened just the one side of it like 100 times. It's a new shoelace. Like it's he was so particular about lacing it up. Yeah, no, he totally owned that, man.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Yeah, like when we traveled together about a year and a half, almost 2 years now. There was always buffets when we were going there, and God, he just destroyed food. So I can picture him getting happy every time seeing those snacks. Just so.
Oh, it was the most genuine, just like pure. Just like his eyes would light up, he would smile. Which I mean, Billy is a very like genuine and pure guy.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, this guy was. It's just like that's one of the things. It's like kids, they really show their emotions. That never left Billy. So I'd get him like, I don't know. I just felt like I was giving like a 6-year-old like a little bag of Oreos like every time. So I started calling him Billy.
Cool. Well, hey man, thanks for coming on.
Yes, thank you.
That was really informative, and I think I learned a lot. Check Ben out. Check BigMAC out. We'll put all the info in the show notes, and thanks for joining us.
Cool. Thanks for having me, guys.
Cool.
Peace.
Peace.
Hey fan peeps, thanks for joining, and as always, we appreciate any feedback. You can follow us on our Facebook page, They Need a Hobby, and also at TNAH Pod on Instagram and Twitter.
Hopefully one day we'll find a hobby and maybe even be one of the cool kids. Peace.
I just want you to know Canal has a doorman as well. They have to buzz you in. You just can't casually stroll.
Thanks, Lance. Okay. Continuing.
They're super nice, though.
Thank you. They're all really nice.